Welcome, one and all. December live stream. Why am I still wearing these? Need those. Last month of 2023. Welcome, everybody. Let me know if you can hear me, if you can see me. A couple confessions to make right off the top. It's been a tumultuous month. Number one, my computer died, and I eventually figured out that it was my boot drive SSD that had died. And I wasn't as well backed up as I should have been. And I keep the questions that people ask me for these live streams in a document on my desktop. I did not have my desktop backed up. So if you're here hoping to hear the answer to one of your questions that I told you I would address in this live stream, I may still do it because I went back and found as many of those questions as I could. But if I miss it, email me again, message me again. I'll put it back in a backed up document so that I can address it next time. Also, number two, I forgot to actually send out the email to my email list informing everyone that this live stream was happening. So if you are here, I'm grateful for you. A lot of people probably aren't. We'll probably have a smaller attendance this time. But good to see everyone who is here. And I'm going to be answering all your questions that I can today. And I'm going to be going back and forth between questions I do have recovered in that document and questions that you asked me today. And if you ever want to share something, maybe it's a success story, maybe it's a challenge that you're having, I'd be happy to read it out and give you my thoughts on it. Hey, what's up? How you guys doing? All right, let's get right into it. I see first poster, Henry says, "Hi Noah, I've been rebooting for 10 years and I was clean for a long time. Recently, my cat, who I deeply loved and knew for a decade, died. I've had 3 relapses since, but now I'm 7 days clean. Do you have any advice for dealing with grief while tackling this problem? I had excellent control of things before this happened, so I'm quite surprised. I relapsed after the acute. Well, I understand the bond between man and cat. 1 second. Here's my boy. Interrupted his, but I have 2 cats. They're great company, and had them since they were kittens. So I understand the grief that you are feeling, and I don't want to belittle that at all. And also, anytime that you're going through something more emotionally difficult, whether it's losing a job or a breakup or losing a pet, it's going to probably present more challenge than you felt in a long time. Maybe you are stable and porn free. Maybe you have met with a lot of success and have been able to overcome urges in the past, but when that now I've got a dog who's also whining in the background. Chewy, come here. Doing a live stream. Have some respect. Okay. Yeah, even if it's not during the acute grief phase, like you said, it's not like the day after that thing happened. It still leaves an after effect that you're recovering from. And any addiction, it becomes an emotional support, emotional coping mechanism, becomes something that you rely on in times of stress or pain. And so when you're especially distressed, you're dealing with grief, it can offer that powerful stimulus that can wipe away those emotions that are very difficult to just sit with. And there's no easy fix for that. Grief takes time, uh, but you can proactively move into that process by dealing with it and comforting yourself in as many healthy ways as you talking to people in your life about what you're going through, finding comfort in creativity or hobbies that fill you with a sense of satisfaction, playing music or writing, drawing, being in nature, all of the ways that people who don't have an addiction to rely on help themselves cope with pain and move through grief and feel soothed are the ways in which you need to be proactively acting and taking that time and energy to actually care for yourself. You can't just ignore that and hope it's going to go away because it'll come out in unhealthy ways, like acting out with porn. Andrew says, "Hi, do you think it's possible to have ED from masturbating a lot to fantasies?" That's a great question. And yes, I in fact have worked with people before who have what I call masturbation induced erectile dysfunction. People who never or hardly ever actually used porn, but still developed the same sort of erectile dysfunction that people with PIED do. They're able to masturbate just fine, but when it comes to actually having sex, actually being intimate with a partner, they can't do it. This is rarer than PIED because with porn, especially internet porn, you have an infinite array of novelty and it can continue being stimulating and powerfully captivating. When most people, if they didn't have porn, just had their fantasies, wouldn't masturbate nearly as much, wouldn't spend nearly as much time and energy masturbating. But some people do. Some people have a vivid imagination, a rich fantasy life, and they're really able to throw themselves into that fantasy life to a similar degree that a lot of us use porn. And when that happens and you don't have a complementary uh, ability to enjoy real intimacy and real sex, then it can lead to MIED, masturbation induced erectile dysfunction. But the good news is that it's reversible in much the same way that PIED is reversible. And stop masturbating, or at least reduce your masturbation, moderate it. If you're masturbating for a long time and edging, you can stop that and just have shorter sessions, have more realistic fantasies, or only masturbate to sensation to make it a bit more boring, but still have an outlet for when you are genuinely very aroused. And given time and given yourself the opportunity to actually practice real intimacy, you can recover just like someone with PIED recover. Is there a thing called death grip? Yes. So death grip is a colloquial term for overly rough or physically stimulating masturbation practices. So this is when usually people aren't using lubrication and they're using a strong grip that is providing more potent stimulus than intercourse would. And when you do this, you're physically desensitizing yourself over time, just as you are probably neurologically desensitizing yourself with pornography, blasting your brain with that super stimulus of sexual content. You're desensitizing your actual physical penis as well with sensations that are dissimilar to real sex. And the solution is much the same. Stop masturbation, or at least stop masturbation with death grip. If you do masturbate, use lubrication and make it as similar in physical sensation to intercourse would be. And give yourself time. Lay off the pornography as well, of course, because you want to resensitize your brain as well as your penis. And practice real intimacy and sex. Hi, Noah. It's been well over 2 years now since the unfortunate passing of Gary Wilson. I read his book and found him to be a compassionate individual. Do you still think about Gary sometimes? And what was your fondest memory of him? Thank you for mentioning Gary. Yeah, I definitely still think about him often. He had a big impact on my life, first from afar with his work on yourbrainonporn.com and his TED Talk, The Great Porn Experiment, that a lot of you have probably benefited from as well. But then as a friend, after I wrote my book, we started corresponding. He was very supportive and congratulatory about my work and definitely wanted other people who had actually experienced porn problems, because he hadn't personally, to kind of take what he had done and move forward with it and help as many people understand the effects of pornography use. And he wanted young guys like me, or at least I was young at that time, to take that knowledge and take our experience and help people of the world understand and heal themselves. And yeah, he was a very good person, a very good friend, and I appreciate him a lot and still think about him a lot. I think my the memory that comes up is he actually invited me to his home. We lived not too far away, so I motorcycled down there and stayed for the weekend. And got to walk through the hills and nature and just talk with him and built a friendship after that. Yeah, he was very, very good person, very well intentioned, just one of the best for people of the world and their relationship. All right, I'm going to go my document here and read some questions that were submitted before. First one is, I used to watch videos of other people masturbating, not videos where two people were having sex, but I'd say I was kind of addicted to those videos. Will it still damage me? The answer is yes, it very well could. There's no real difference in the brain and what's happening in the brain when you're watching two people have sex versus watching someone you're attracted to masturbate. It's all sexually stimulating. And depending on what arouses you, you could be watching a video of someone making cornbread. And if that's like your kink, if that's your thing, and you're getting the same high from it that most people would get from watching conventional porn, then that's porn to you, and it can still have the same damaging effect when used chronically over time. I feel like people might think that going for hookups instead of watching porn and masturbating is a solution for this problem. And I feel that sometimes it can be worse than watching porn. What's your opinion on this? Because you suggest having sex with your partner while recovering is okay. I feel like hookups is a topic that should be addressed. Well, you certainly don't want to just trade a porn addiction for a sex addiction. And certainly, not all sex is healthy, and you can approach it in ways that are unhealthy for you, unhealthy for the people that you are intimate with. And if you're using sex, if you're using hookups in much the same way as you used porn as a way to cope with difficult emotions, as a way to reassure yourself or boost up your own ego, or anything that's not a motivation of just wanting to have a great time and have your partner have a great time, bonding and enjoying sexual intimacy, is liable to lead to negative consequences, physical, maybe emotional consequences. And if you're engaging in risky behavior or just chasing that high and not thinking carefully and acting carefully to protect yourself and your partners, having unprotected sex or having unsafe sex, then yeah, it can be a poor way to move away from a porn addiction because you're likely just moving that compulsive behavior around away from a screen and into real life with real people, which can harm not only yourself, but those partners as well. And that isn't to say, however, that all hookups or all casual intimacy and casual sex is wrong. I don't believe that, and I don't judge that. But I do think that people who are in recovery from chronic porn use should give themselves enough time focusing on themselves in order to reach a place of stability where they know themselves better and they feel more stable in being porn free before actively trying to go form connections, sexual, romantic, emotional, with other people. That doesn't mean that you should isolate yourself. You can still go out, have fun, make connections, make friends, and work on your social life. And all that is going to help you find those romantic connections, those sexual connections when you feel you're ready. But you shouldn't be pushing yourself to do that before you're in a more stable, healthy place. Hey, Noah, you said that we should abstain from masturbating for at least 30 days when we first quit porn. I don't watch porn anymore, but I masturbated 4 times in the first 30 days when I quit porn for the first time. Can I still recover fully if I stop masturbating later, or could it leave an eternal scar? I'm glad you asked this because I think you misinterpreted what I said. What I've said often is that people recovering from chronic porn use should at some point in that recovery try going for at least 30 days completely abstinent. No sexual contact, no masturbation, no looking at sexual content online. And Yet that doesn't have to come in that first 30 days when you first quit. For a lot of people, that's not really tenable because they need to focus on one step at a time. First, becoming porn free while still masturbating without porn. And then later on, once they have more skill and more sobriety and stability behind them as a foundation, they can, if they want to, experiment with also abstaining from masturbation, at least for a temporary period of time. So, no, I don't believe that you've created an eternal scar by continuing to masturbate in moderation while being porn free. I think that's actually a reasonable approach to recovery for a lot of people. Noah, there are several books on semen retention. Some are down to earth and practical, some on the boundary of spiritual and fantasy. The whole rock I don't know how to pronounce that. Are there any books you have read which really interested you and you learned from? I don't consider myself an expert on semen retention itself. I've read some accounts, some anecdotes, I've read some studies. I don't think I've read any books specifically about semen retention, but I'd be interested to read one. If you have a recommendation, put it in the chat and I'll put it on my reading list. From my personal experience, don't have a lot of belief. I'm open to the idea, but I don't yet have belief in semen retention itself because of the fact that you're not expelling your seed or your nutrients, having a lot of benefit. I do see that some men are more sensitive to the effects of orgasm and ejaculation than others and might have a hangover period, might have more of a chaser effect where they feel more compulsive sexually afterward, that might feel less sharp mentally or have other effects that they don't like from having an orgasm, even if that orgasm is with a partner during partnered intercourse or sex. Yet, for me, I don't think those effects are very strong if they're there at all. And I have gone a period of, I think 6 months was probably the longest I went completely abstinent and no ejaculations at all, no sexual contact at all. And like I could do it, and I'm glad that I did, but I didn't see the differences or the significant positive effects of that to make me want to do that regularly when I have a partner and I enjoy intercourse and I enjoy. So semen retention is not something by itself that I consider myself an expert on or that I promote. I do promote periods of complete abstinence as part of the recovery process from the porn induced effects of chronic masturbating to porn. But long term semen retention is not something that I necessarily support or believe in. But if it's for you and you feel a lot better while doing that, I don't at all criticize that at all. And I'm open to learning more about the benefits of semen retention. Thank you so much for your answer, Noah. It's wonderful to see that you have pets in your life. They're blessed to be yours. Not everyone gets that you can grieve for a cat, so really thanks a lot, man. Yeah, I mean, I think of my cats and my dog as my children. I didn't give birth to them or begot them myself, but that's how I think of them. Call them my son and my daughters. And I'm of course maybe a little different from the average person in how I view humans versus non-human animals. Been a vegan for a long time. I don't eat animals or their products. I don't believe that in the modern day, when we have plentiful access to healthy, nutritious plant foods, that we should be subjugating animals to factory farms and slaughterhouses. All earthlings deserve respect, and that we shouldn't harm our fellow earthlings. We have to for purposes of self-defense or survival. Yeah, and I care a lot about not only my pets but animals in this world. Hi, Noah. You said that if you wait to fully recover without trying to rewire your brain, then you will never be able to be fully recovered. This freaked me out because I'm not in a situation to flirt with girls right now, and on top of that, I'm 19. Can you still fully recover if you wait to get married in order to rewire your brain? Yeah, I think this is another misinterpretation of things that I said. What I have said and what I still say is that if you have a porn-induced sexual dysfunction, there are two phases, and I think I saw another question about this in the comments. Reboot and rewire. What are those? Well, the first phase of rebooting is when you abstain from porn, all porn substitutes, and probably masturbation as well, at least for temporary periods of time, in order to allow your brain to resensitize and to shed some of the effects of that chronic porn use and to allow yourself to be ready to start practicing real intimacy and starting the second phase of recovery, which is rewiring. Most often, there is an overlap between these two phases. You won't finish rebooting necessarily before you start rewiring, going on dates, kissing, holding hands, starting to try more sexual things with a partner. But if you delay that rewiring process, it's not going to actually hurt your overall recovery. If you're not dating right now or you want to wait till marriage to try anything sexual, it's still going to help a lot to get that reboot like completely done and out of the way and give yourself time completely away from porn to resensitize. But you will still have some work to do in order to be fully recovered once you are married or once you are being intimate and having sex, because it's going to take some practice of that in order to get to the point where it feels natural and normal for your body and brain, because you still have that ghost of conditioning from associating sexuality and arousal with a screen and with being by yourself rather than with the touch of a real human partner who you're attracted to. And it may be that you've rebooted enough and you're in a place where you can have successful intercourse the first time that you try. It may be that even if you've been porn free for 3 years, for 5 years, it's not going to work the first time because you still need that rewiring. That doesn't mean that you will never heal, but it does mean that you still will have some work to do once you get to that point of rewiring and having the opportunity to be intimate with someone else. But that work can be fun and it can be a bonding activity, especially when you tell that person what you're going through. And you don't have to talk about your previous history with porn, especially if you've been porn free for a long time. You can just say, which is the truth, I've never had sex before. I don't have a sexual experience. I don't have um, confidence in this part of my life. And so it might take a little practice. It might take a little time for us to get into the right groove here and to be able to build this skill, because it is a skill and it does take some practice. So as long as you're willing to admit that about yourself and talk about that openly with your partner, there's no reason it has to hold you back. And really, no reason, if you really are against it, to actually share your history with porn if you've been porn free for a year plus and you really think that that rebooting phase is over or well progressed anyway. Hey, Noah, I've been sending you some questions, but you haven't replied. Sorry if I sent you so much. Yeah, I did save some questions from you. Hopefully, some of them are still in this document. Like I said in the beginning here, I lost my document where I keep user questions because my hard drive died, but I've tried to find all the questions that I could. So you might hear me answer some of your questions here soon, but if I don't, you can ask them in the chat. Noah, how long were you addicted and how many flatlines did you encounter? I mean, I was addicted since I was like 9 years old, so well more than a decade. And I still consider myself addicted to porn. I just don't use it. But I don't believe that addiction is something that is cured at any point, at least not for me, because I still recognize that part of myself. I still know that if I open that door to porn, it would become compulsive quickly again. I'd bring back all the problems with it that I could. I think if you've really cured an addiction, you should be able to use that thing you were addicted to in moderation without it becoming a problem, without losing control, and without a lot of negative consequence. And that's not possible for me. I know that much. So I don't consider myself as cured addiction. As for how many flatlines I encountered, there are some times in my recovery where I wasn't dating, and so I might not even really have been thinking about it, and I might have been in a flat line but not really noticed. But the one flat line that I clearly remember that I did notice and was like, oh, this is what a flatline feels like, was after my first relapse, and it lasted for about a month. And just to clarify, even though I don't consider my addiction to be curable, and I don't think addiction in most cases is curable, doesn't mean that it has to limit the quality of your life or that it has to control you or that you'll be facing overwhelming urges for the rest of your life. You can definitely manage it and not be controlled by it and not be even too bothered by it. But if you forget that it is part of you, if you become complacent, if you start opening those doors to sexual content again, it's very easy to slip right back into that addictive cycle. Noah, being an online coach, I'm sure you are really good at helping people recover from this addiction. I'm sure many men have come to you for help. Are you ever disgusted by their stories, or do you have to be completely non judgmental and put that to the side? Uh, I think by nature, I'm a very non judgmental person. I don't remember ever being disgusted by the story of someone who came to me. We're all human, our lives are all messy, our desires might not be um, palatable, at all times to other people or to society at large, but I'm not someone who judges very quickly about those kinds of things. Um, I think I judge when I do judge, it's when someone knows what they're doing is wrong and continues to do it without trying to do anything about it. You know, you can know that what your behavior is wrong and continue to do it because you're an addict, and that I very much understand and not judgmental about, and support people in shedding their shame and regaining control of their lives. But if you're doing something, whatever it is, doesn't have to be porn related, and you know it's wrong, you know it's hurting other people, and you continue to do it regardless because that's like your full conscious choice as a human. That I judge, and those people I judge. But other than that, I'm pretty non judgmental. And if anyone out there, especially those of you who don't have anyone to talk to about this, you're craving that ability to actually have a discussion about what you're going through, what you've experienced, what you're ashamed of, um, I welcome you to book coaching with me or to join the support and discussion group that I run. You can find information about both of those things in the Linktree link in the description of this video. But the group as well is a very non-judgmental place. A lot of people share a lot of dark stuff, things that they maybe have never shared before, that they might be ashamed of, things that they might believe they'll be judged for. But in that place, in that community, it's a very open and non judgmental space. And it can really help yourself to be able to share those dark things and see that you're still accepted and supported by others. And that can help a lot with your self esteem, just to shed some of that shame and think, like, okay, I'm not unworthy, I'm not unlovable. And that is something that if you don't have, addiction will always have more power over you. If you believe that who you are fully and all of your sides just not acceptable or not lovable, then what's left for you but the addiction, which does at least offer some pleasure and some momentary relief from depression or shame or stress. But if you feel like you can share completely who you are, at least with certain trusted individuals, and still be accepted, then you can shed that weight and start really moving forward with your life. Hey Noah, I'm on a no PMO journey. In fact, my 90 days is tomorrow. I wanted to get into dating again, but I'm worried about using dating apps because of the digital nature of them. I tried using them around 45 days and noticed a sensation feeling that I felt may be detrimental. I don't find I have a lot of opportunities in real life. I feel the apps are necessary. Yeah, dating apps can be dangerous, especially the ones that are more picture focused or hookup focused. There are apps out there that are more about like personality and connection and conversation. So if you're going to go down that road, I'd recommend you find those rather than the ones where you're just constantly swiping through pictures, because those can be a lot like porn. It keeps you on that dopamine drip of looking for the the next best thing and can be triggering and cause you to want to masturbate or look at sexual content elsewhere. But if you find something that's more connection focused and something that you can actually find success at, and you're using it to form real life connections and meet people in real life, then that can be a great thing. Just don't let yourself be used and let yourself be led around by the nose or another organ. And also, don't cut yourself off from the possibility of meeting someone off the apps. I know today in a lot of places that's kind of taboo, or people are not comfortable approaching strangers or meeting new people in a more dynamic real life way, and they just rely on online platforms or apps. But we're still that's still a possibility, and it's a lot more rewarding in some respects than trying to meet people on an app. A lot of guys' experience on apps is pretty demoralizing. You know, might swipe right or want to connect with a lot of the people you meet, but hardly any of them want to connect with you, it seems like. Or when they do, maybe the conversation fizzles out or you get ghosted. Pretty discouraging for a lot of guys. Not to say that you can't find success there or can't find a good connection there, but it's a distorted view of your value when you get rejected, or at least feel like you're getting rejected that often. And in real life, you're still going to get rejected. But you can also form more human connections and find friendship, perhaps, or at least find a good conversation and have a good time and practice your social skills, even if ultimately it doesn't work out as a romantic prospect. And one thing that I recommend very often for guys who are trying to make more social connections or trying to date more is just to put yourself regularly in places or communities or classes or anything like that where you can regularly be around people in a group which might contain someone you're attracted to. If you become, like, let's say you start volunteering somewhere, and other people around your age are also volunteering there. It gives you an opportunity to get to know each other, make new friendships, and perhaps see if there's a spark, attraction, and then you can act on that. You say, "Hey, I want to go to lunch after today's volunteer session. You want to join me?" Be more natural and organic. And you don't have to go right toward making it explicitly romantic or sexual. You can start as friends. And honestly, the people that I know who are in healthy long term relationships, most of them met organically in real life through their friends groups or through schools that they were going to or classes they were taking or things that they shared in common. So join some classes, go regularly to an exercise class or whatever you're interested in. Talk to the people there, be friendly, be open, meet people there. Go to meetup.com. That among the social networks, I think Meetup is one of the healthier ones because it promotes actually getting together in person and meeting new people and forming real new friendships in real life. So go to meetup.com, try joining some of the events there, or make your own group. And it can be based around any interest you have. Hey, Noah, around 8 months in my journey in a relationship, but not seeing much improvement on my PIED. Any advice, or do I simply need more time? Well, 8 months, I know that feels like a long time, and I know you would want by that point to be having successful sex, but it often does take longer than that. However, time isn't the only factor. And in order to really understand your situation and give focused advice, I would need to talk to you a lot more. So if you do want to book a session with me, you can find out how to do so in the free link down below. But I will say you should go to my website or right here on my YouTube channel and search for overcoming sexual performance anxiety. And in that video, I will guide people through some techniques to use to help themselves relax and have fun while they are rewiring and trying sex, and take a lot of the pressure off of performing during sex in order to actually allow yourself to relax and get to that point where you're open to arousal and open to enjoyment. And I don't know for sure if that's something you struggle with, but most of the people who are recovering from PIED do struggle with that to some extent. And that's something that you can actively work on that doesn't just require you to wait more months, that can make a big difference in your intimate and sex life and get you perhaps past whatever hurdle is still in your way between you and healthy, satisfying sex. I was watching a film and a pornographic scene came on. I immediately skipped. Could this worsen my recovery? Does this even count as a relapse? It doesn't sound like it counts as a relapse. If I understand you right, you were watching a regular film and a sex scene came on and you immediately skipped past it. That's not even a slip. That's not a relapse. Stop worrying so much. You did the right thing, it sounds like. You recognized, oh, wait, this is triggering for me. Skip right past it. And, what else can you expect yourself to do? I guess you could have checked the rating of the film and seen, like, oh, this film has sexual content. I'm going to avoid that. But that's not necessary for most of us, especially a little later on in recovery. You don't need to completely cut yourself off from the possibility of seeing anything remotely suggestive. You can practice use those opportunities when you do see something like that, or you see an advertisement, or you see a post on Instagram, as a moment and an opportunity to practice your ability to see that, mindfully be aware of its potential to affect you negatively, and move on. Close the app or skip the scene. So sounds like you did great. Hey Noah, I was wondering if fantasizing is harmful for my recovery because I haven't watched porn or fapped in 3 months and still haven't seen any improvement. Fantasizing, it's not something that's inherently positive or inherently negative. Fantasizing does have utility. We can fantasize, not necessarily just about sexual things, but we can fantasize in order to figure out what we want. I can fantasize about different careers. Think like, oh, actually, being an engineer, that might be pretty cool, and I can have fantasies about that, and that can lead me to actually learning more about engineering or starting to take an engineering course and explore that. So fantasy can be a good thing, but it can also hold you back if you're using fantasy purely as an escape or as an emotional coping mechanism. That can also be helpful in the short term because we need coping mechanisms. But if, like anything, you use it too much or you use it to an unhealthy degree, it can become harmful in and of itself as well. So if you're sexually fantasizing frequently, and you're using that kind of as a substitute for no longer using porn or masturbating, that may be holding you back, sure. But it might just be that you need more time or more opportunities to rewire and have real intimate contact as well. So, without knowing more details about your situation, I can't give more accurate or precise advice. But fantasy, used properly, can be healthy, or used improperly, can hold you back. Hey, Noah, once you reach a certain amount of time without porn, like 90 to 95 days, the images of porn and the urges become a bit stronger. Me, I can go up to 70 to 80 days easily. But after that, things become hard. Like if any sexual thing may be on TV, that image gets stuck in my mind and that image keeps on coming into my mind. What is the reason behind this? Can you explain? Yeah, the difficulty level of recovery tends to come in waves. And where those waves tend to peak is different for different people. Some people, it's easy to get the first week, but getting from 1 week to 2 weeks is very difficult. For others, maybe it's easy to get to 2.5 months, but after 80, 90 days, things start to get really difficult, like with you. For others, maybe the first day is easy, but the second day is very difficult. And knowing this about yourself can help you prepare for those times. But it doesn't mean that once you get there, you're doomed for it to keep being difficult until you relapse. You can get through that period and it can become easy again. Maybe you get to 100 days and you feel like relief of like, oh, the urges are kind of gone. I'm not obsessing about this anymore. Feels good again. but maybe at 250 days, it gets hard again. You just have to be prepared for those things. One reason is because after 2, 3 months, your sensitivity is really starting to come back. So if you're desensitized because of your chronic porn use, but your sensitivity has returned after 80 days, you might face stronger urges because you're more sexually sensitive. That's why a critical part of the healing process is the rewire. It's actually practicing real intimacy and real sex. Of course, it doesn't have to come right away, but it can help. And I say this with a big grain of salt. It can help to have that rewire process, to practice intimacy, to have real sex, because you're rewiring your brain to think first and to be drawn first to real physical contact with a partner rather than to porn. So that can help in that way to put that buffer between you and your old compulsive pornographic behavior. But here comes the grain of salt. It's dangerous to rely on sex as a stopgap between you compulsions, because if you're relying on that, it's not something that you have complete control over. Maybe you and your partner break up, or maybe your partner is not in the mood. What happens then? Are you going to go right back to porn? That's why you need to build the skills of recovery, like being able to cope with your negative emotions or manage your urges, have mindfulness and awareness of what your triggers are. All these things are important to work on, because you can't just rely on real sex to keep you from having the urge to use porn. Hey Noah, I've been fighting with PIED all my life, but I also feel that my early circumcision has to do with it. Has anyone that writes you ever mentioned that? Yeah, so that's a good question. And circumcision is something that I think should not be done to young boys, to babies. Um, I don't think it should be the standard. And I think in Europe it's not, but here in the United States, it still often is. I think it's becoming less common though. There's no reason, unless there is a specific medical reason, to remove a healthy part of the human body uh, upon birth. And I'm very much against circumcision, and it can have some negative effects. It can reduce sensitivity. It can it reduces the amount of protection the glands of your penis has, because the glands, which is meant to be covered by the foreskin, is now exposed, and that can cause pain. And during, especially for like an athlete, when you're bicycling or something and it's rubbing against the inside of your underpants, it can cause pain. And it can also cause loss of sensitivity in that part of your penis, because it has to desensitize, because now it's exposed to the outside world. Uh, yeah, don't mean to get real deep into this, but yeah, I myself was circumcised as a child, and it's something that I really deeply regret that happened. Something that was kind of traumatic for me when I realized what had happened and fully learned about what had been done to me. It's something that anyone I know who's having a baby boy, I talk to them about this, and I encourage them not to circumcise, because it can be done later in life if that individual makes that choice for themselves, but it can't be reversed once it's done. Now, that said, I don't believe that your circumcision is likely to be leading you to be unable to have an erection for sex. As far as I know, nothing about being circumcised makes you less able to get and maintain an erection. It can make you less sensitive to sexual stimulation, but you should still be able to get erect just fine, unless there are other factors at play, like corn-induced erectile dysfunction. Now, what can happen is, because if you are circumcised and you have less sensitivity, maybe you're more forceful in your application of stimulation when you're masturbating to porn. And so real sex can feel even less stimulating because of that. Hey Noah, I'm from Pakistan and I'm struggling from a porn addiction. I relapse every time I want to complete the reboot. I'm 23. I'm suffering from ED without ever having sex due to porn and masturbation. you're in the right place. You can start by getting my free PDF of my book. There's a link to do that down in the description below at my link tree. And you can see a lot of other resources that will help you along the way at different price points, some free, some affordable for most people, like the group that I run. It's $40 US per month. Get access to 4 meetings a week and a community of very supportive, like minded people. That's something that I think a lot of you should consider if you're not in there already, because that's one of the biggest game changing things you could do along this journey. Take yourself from doing this on your own to doing it with the support of a team and the accountability. Hi, Noah. I watch your channel, and it's amazing what you do for people. I have been struggling with porn and PIED for a while now. I'm now 24. I've never ejaculated during sex, and it does frustrate me and my partner. What's the best thing to do? Because I've already started doing no FAP and no porn. It almost seems like I'll never be able to have successful sex and enjoy it. So it sounds like you have not only PIED, but PIDE, delayed ejaculation, which is something that I struggled with. And after my PIED was mostly gone and I was able to get and maintain an erection for sex, I still had a very difficult time reaching. And there are ways to help yourself with it. The biggest way, what you're already doing: no porn and no masturbation. If you only allow your body to orgasm during sex and you don't supplement that with masturbation or finishing yourself with your own hands or your own touch, then your body will adapt more quickly to those sensations of sex. And I do believe that you'll get to the point where you're able to have an orgasm during sex with your partner. It might take some time, it might take several months, but be patient with it. Talk openly with your girlfriend or your partner about it, and don't try to force it to happen if it doesn't feel natural. The more you have sex without orgasm, the more sensitive you'll probably become until you get to that point where you are able to orgasm for the first time during sex. And after that, your body will start to get used to that and more accustomed to that, and it'll happen more and more. Please Noah is watching TikTok advised for rebooters. I have some personal bias here. I don't think watching TikTok is probably good for anybody. I think it's very well designed to suck you into this state of mind where you're kind of just mindlessly following the breadcrumbs that it lays out for you. It's very easy to get into that state of mind and then like look up 3 hours later and think like, what did I just watch for the last 3 hours? Maybe that's just me being old and not understanding or judging the social media of a younger generation. But I don't think TikTok is generally bringing much of a positive impact into people's lives. And that includes YouTube Shorts and Instagram Reels, all that short form video content. And if you're recovering from porn addiction, also porn use, then it's even more dangerous because the algorithm is going to serve you up some sexual content at some point. And if it sees that you like it, that you watch it for longer, it's going to serve you up more and more. Just become a trigger. Brother, erection returns, but it keeps on fluctuating during sex. That's normal. You're probably not to that point where you're 100% recovered yet. You're still, in that gray area between full on PIED and full recovery. And that's okay. If your erection fluctuates, if you start to lose your erection, don't worry about it too much. Just use it as an opportunity to take a break, relax, cuddle, talk, play. And then if you don't treat it as a big deal, in a few minutes later, you'll probably have an erection again and you can go right back to having sex. But if you do treat it as a big deal, get embarrassed about it, or you try to force it yourself to keep going, you're probably only going to start associating more and more stress and anxiety and other negative emotions, sex, which is the opposite of what you want to do. Right. Coming close to the end of our live stream today. Some questions I missed. No, not really a porn question, but if you don't mind, I remember a video you made about coping with bald. I'm 31 and I notice I'm getting that receding hairline. I don't care too much as I'm getting older. If there are others out there that really do care a lot about going bald, any advice to them or words of comfort? Yeah, you should watch that video. Search my channel for just bald, and there's a video I made years ago about that. For me, like I started going bald when I was like 18, so something I had to deal with earlier than a lot of people, and yeah, it was I was self-conscious about. Considered the options for intervention. There are many. You take it's minoxidil. You can take. It's been a while since I've thought about it, so I forget the name. The different medications that are available, but a lot of them have side effects, and even if you don't suffer from side effects, it still becomes like something you have to think about and practice every day, and it takes up time, it takes energy, and ultimately, in that video, I talked about the conclusion I came to, which I much easier just to accept and embrace nature and what nature has in mind for me than it is to try to fight that current. So just shaving my head and embracing being bald turned out to be the best thing for me. And if you are confident about it and you accept yourself, whether it's going bald or having acne or height or your weight or anything, that confidence and self acceptance is much more attractive to most people than a full head of hair or particular height or particular body type or whatever. Um, we all have the cards that we were dealt at birth, and it's our job to play them the best that we can. But I think self acceptance and embracing who you are and body is like is very important, a lot more important to attraction and dating than any particular physical trait. So that's my advice about that. How do sildenafil or tadalafil during intimate recovery affect the progress? Good question. For most people who have PIED and are in recovery, I don't recommend the use of medications like sildenafil, Viagra, Cialis, because it's not targeting the source of the problem. You might be targeting the symptom, but by doing so, you're actually pushing your body to perform before it's ready. And the metaphor that I've used commonly and I've talked about in these live streams before is it's like you've sprained your ankle badly. And instead of doing the thing that's going to actually help you heal, which is put it in a splint, keep your weight off of it for a while, and then once it's healed enough, slowly start putting your weight back on, stretching it, being more active, rehabbing it. Instead, you're just taking some painkillers and going for another run, which can exacerbate the injury and delay the healing process. And you do the same thing when you take something like Viagra while recovering from PTSD. Now, the time where it can be helpful is if your body is ready, you've rebooted long enough to be ready for sex, and you have the opportunity to be intimate. You've tried to be intimate. You've tried to use techniques that I talk about in that video, overcoming sexual performance anxiety, to help yourself relax and put yourself in the right mindset to actually be able to enjoy sex and get and maintain an erection. But still, you just can't get over that anxiety. It can be helpful sometimes to use something like Viagra as prescribed, from your doctor, as a crutch, as a confidence booster for those first few times having sex so that you can get some sexual experience and go from there and quickly wean yourself off because you shouldn't need it long term if all you're dealing with. Yeah, if I missed any others, How should I approach using dating apps? So, if you're going to use dating apps, right ones, important, or about connection. I've been out of the dating game for a little while now, but I think there's one called Coffee Meets Bagel that is more about connection and conversation. Some people like Bumble, but I've also heard some bad things about Bumble being bots. Um, so yeah, finding the one that you want to try for yourself, giving it a shot, but focusing on getting off the app into texting with your number or um, video chatting or talking in person or like meeting up for drinks. I think going to serve you better than just using it as entertainment, which is what a lot of people end up using dating apps for. A lot of people, they swipe and they like that feeling of possibility of connecting with someone, but when they actually get the opportunity, they actually connect with someone, they don't actually act on it and make it happen in real life and or start forming a real relationship. Maybe because they're scared, maybe because they don't want to face rejection, don't want to put themselves out there. They keep just living in the fantasy of the dating app rather than using it to make themselves a better reality. So that's something I will warn you against. How did you deal with loneliness in the reboot, Noah? So, yeah, I mean, I think actually while I was rebooting, I was less lonely than I had been for a long time because I was actually starting to talk to people in my life about what I was going through and showing people fully who I was, what I had been through, and that showing yourself for who you are and being accepted by your friends and your family can do a lot to prevent loneliness. Also, at the time, for my personal journey, I was starting to date someone new, and she was the first person that I had told about what I had just learned about my own porn use and my recovery journey. So, loneliness in my early recovery wasn't something I had to deal with very much. But later on, that relationship ended. Um, I was kind of feeling kind of isolated. I started relapsing eventually. Yeah, so loneliness became something that was definitely a factor in some of my relapses. But one resource that is available to you that wasn't available to me at the time is a group like the one that I run. Again, I want to pitch that because I think it's so beneficial to so many of the guys in there. Having a group where you can show up, up to 4 times a week, but at least once a week for most people, and just talk to a group of people about this part of your life or any other things that are going on in your life and get some of those honest, genuine friendships that maybe you're missing in your real life. A lot of those people become accountability partners for each other. They become close friends and they talk a lot outside of the group or even meet up in real life, some of them. So, encourage you guys to consider joining the Rebooter support and discussion group that I run. We're coming up on the hour. My voice is starting to fail me. Do one or two more. Hi, Noah. I'm 62 days free from PMO. I feel a lot better and will never go back. Good job, man. At this stage, I watch TikTok and YouTube a lot, but not sexual content. Should I withdraw from it totally? I don't think it's probably necessary for you to withdraw from it totally if it's something that you genuinely enjoy and think does improve your life some, but you do have to be mindful about how you're using it and whether or not it's, and maybe change some of your habits there. Maybe you have the habit of when you're bored, take out your phone and you go to TikTok. But if you have more things around you that are not screen based that you can do while you're bored, like have a guitar on the wall that you can pick off and start playing or whatever you like to do, that's going to be probably a healthier habit that allows you to feel better about how you spend your time on TikTok. But it doesn't mean that you have to never watch TikTok or YouTube again. For YouTube, I have an extension on my browser that blocks all recommendations. So I only see the things that I actually search for. I don't see anything in the sidebar. I don't see anything on the homepage, just blank. And that helps me not just get sucked into the rabbit hole. You can also use technology that way to make it so that it's still available for you. You can still find what you want to watch, but you're not just a victim of the algorithm. All right, gentlemen, that'll be it for today. Thanks for being here. Next time, if you have any questions for me I didn't get to today, you want to make sure I answer next time, send them to me in my email, noah@coachchurch.com. And I will not place those questions in a file that's vulnerable to being lost if my hard drive fails again or my solid state drive fails again. Have an amazing weekend, everybody. Porn free weekend. I'll see you next one.